Out of paper, out of stock. There's friendly faces around the block. Break loose from the chains that are causing you pain. Call Michael and Stanley, Jim, Dwight, Creed. Call Andy and Kelly for your business paper needs. Or Dunder Mifflin, the people versus paper people. Dunder Mifflin, the people versus paper people. Dunder Mifflin, the people versus paper people.
Hello and welcome to the Michael Scott Podcast Company, a show for fans of The Office by fans of The Office. I'm your host and philanderer, Sean Roney.
And I'm Edwin James, Vance Refrigeration.
And with us, as always, our producer in the warehouse, Mr. Alex Ward.
Two queens on casino night. I am going to drop a deuce on everybody.
Is there another drop?
Smart.
Old friends.
Okay. No.
That was the same one I got you with last episode, too.
Gosh
I always
darn
use
it.
that one.
Well, every week we get together and talk about our favorite show, NBC's The Office. Old friends, new lovers, and the disabled. Welcome, everyone, to Casino Night, our episode on Casino Night, Season 2 finale.
Woo! What an episode, guys. This is a big one.
We got two love triangles. We got multiple people going all in, on and off the poker table. Right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow.
You like that?
I like
But-
that, Sean.
Before we can get into all of that, first, Cryman Squat, FNC, double time. We opened today with some sad news. Last week, we said goodbye to Ranjit Chowdhury, the actor who played the beloved Vikram. Best salesman Michael Scott ever met. Ranjit passed away last week on Wednesday when we dropped our show last week, 64 years old, no cause of death. But I think everyone was saddened by this news. Always sad to see a great character from The Office pass away, someone who's not going to join us for the reunion that we know is coming.
That's true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
You know,
Vikram is an important character in the show. I mean, not to, like, I think he provided the voice of reason at a time when Michael desperately needed one, a voice of sanity during the Michael Scott Paper Company arc before he smartly bailed on the whole thing. But yeah, it's tragic to hear of his passing.
He provided nutrition to Michael at the call center.
That's right. Yes, they shared food. Yeah.
confidence.
Mhm.
Food for the wise man, but liquor for the fool.
If you just focus on making your calls, he rolls the window up on it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you know, but Patrice O'Neill, who played now I
Sea
can't.
Monster.
Lonnie.
Thank you. Hugh Dane, who played Hank,
Yeah.
the security
man.
guard. There's a couple other folks who we've lost. So, rest in peace, Ranjit
R.I.P.
Chowdhury. We miss you, man. One more little bit of news. I'm going to kick it to Edwin.
Yeah, so for some good news, I think the last few weeks we have seen John Krasinski of Office fame roll out his Some Good News YouTube broadcast, which highlights positivity and things going on in the world that are positive that we can all kind of enjoy and get behind during these uncertain times, which is a phrase that we hear all the time. In these uncertain times.
Here to help us talk about that. Emily Blunt, come on in.
Right, exactly. Yes, and a handful of people have sent this to us. I think we just want to mention it because it's something that we see going on, and it's great to see that positivity. I've watched the first two. In terms of Office-related content, he does have a nice conversation with Steve and Nancy Carell in the first episode, and so there's a little bit of Office content there. They get to talk about that, which is really nice, so it would be worth checking out. The remainder of the SGN broadcasts that I've seen have been just on little stories of positivity. There's a really nice Hamilton reunion. But yeah, it's all it's great, and I think people should check it out.
It really is.
Oh, great.
And I'll tell you, moms love Jim. Moms love good news. And my mom loves some good news. She has been sending it.
Oh, good. All right.
That's hysterical.
And they actually featured a video of a kid. It was actually in some kid like running on the street, but it was it was in my neighborhood, like right near where I grew up.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Some
wild
video.
It,
So that's
over
cool.
in Raleigh Hills.
Yes, let's give them that exact location. How about that?
We'll bleep that out.
Yeah, do you have an address? Yeah.
Yeah. No, I'll give you Raleigh Hills. Yeah. Yeah. That's where I grew up. Great. Glad
Anyways,
that's out there now.
Anyways, moving on to today's episode, Casino Night, Season 2, finale, Episode 22, aired May 11th, 2006, directed by Ken Kwapis, written by Steve Carell. Steve Carell did not. I just want to bring this up really quick because it's.
Go ahead, man.
Please. Steve Carell only wrote 2 episodes of The Office, Casino Night and Survivor Man, 2 fabulous Michael Scott episodes. And
did they say he wrote Survivor Man because he just was improvising out in the forest for a while with a camera? They're like,
let's give him the writer credit.
Give him the writer credit, man. He did
that could. I guess that could be. I don't know, but that's pretty funny. I mean, he does not have a big writing career, at least before this point, when they give him Casino Night to write. When Greg Daniels gives him Casino Night to write.
And I hope to someday live in a world where a person could tell a hilarious 8 joke.
Do you know, like, trivia for you?
Whoa.
Little early, I know.
Let me get the drop. No.
Can you guess his 2 big writing credits before this one?
The Dana Carvey Show.
Yes, that's one.
Evan Almighty.
That's
No,
he didn't write that.
That one. Did he get writing credits for The Daily Show?
No, and I'll give you one more guess. He wrote
Anchorman? He didn't help write Anchorman, did he?
No.
Okay, no way.
He helped write 40-Year-Old Virgin with Judd Apatow. It's just him. He and Judd Apatow are the 2 writing credits on that film. But anyways, I wanted to point that out. I think it's such a fantastic episode, and that it's written by Steve Carell is just, I don't know.
I mean, yeah, they gave him the
exciting.
keys for an extremely important episode. I mean, this is such a. You've made the point before, Edwin. This is the biggest cliffhanger we ever get on this TV show. You know,
Yeah.
I think it's one of the biggest emotional moments besides Michael leaving the finale that we get. I think top 3.
In reviewing this episode, I think it's one of the more important episodes in the whole show. Obviously, we do get the significant cliffhanger, but I think it also sets up Michael in love and what we see from Jan throughout the rest of the show. I think the scene where Michael and the rest of the ensemble are sitting in, I guess, the bullpen or the main room of the office and talking about where the money's going to go is an example of future scenes where they have that kind of discussion where it pops around to every character.
The Killing Field.
The Killing Field.
That's supposedly that's what the writers call it when you've got that happening and it's just joke after joke in the bullpen.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know
they
that.
call it the Killing Field.
That's cool.
Yeah, everyone's lobbing in like one-liners or little ideas
Yep.
and then they talk what charities they'd give.
It's a perfect example of that. Afghanistan Annie's with AIDS.
Yeah. No. But yes, I think to circle back on Jim and Pam, I think this is the defining arc of The Office, and it takes place over the first season and a half of a 9-season show. And this moment has such real stakes and such emotional weight for the characters, and I think it's played out so well as this culmination of a will they, won't they, right? I think they couldn't have strung this out for multiple seasons. I mean, obviously, the Jim and Pam relationship does take multiple seasons to play out. But in this moment, we really get to see Jim put himself out there for Pam in a way that we've seen Jim very flippant at work, not trying, not willing to put any effort in. And so it means a lot for him to put himself on the line in this moment.
Totally. And Ryan and I were just talking earlier today about how it was like when we were watching this season, it was like getting to a point at the end of season 2 where you're just like, is this ever going to happen? Like, how long are they going to drag this on for? And then it was just like, oh my God, they did it. Like, oh my God, like he kissed her. She said no. Like, whoa. Yeah. It was definitely shocking seeing it at the time, and And I'm sure for new viewers today, it still is.
It feels like a climax. Like it does feel like a story climax, you know, when you draw out a story structure and right when you're cresting the top right before the roller coaster goes down. Like this felt like that. And even rewatching it, I can't rewatch that whole sequence without still feeling emotional. I still get a little choked up and I still get a little sad and a little introspective about it.
It's because it's just so well done. Like you totally understand where Pam is at and how she doesn't really see it coming. And
they're both right. They're both wrong. And it's just complicated feelings.
And
then
it's
so
like
simple. Yeah.
And then there's kind of like, it's kind of a double shot too. Of like it happens in the parking lot and then it's not quite satisfying and then it happens again upstairs and then there's the kiss and then it's like no and it's just oh my god yeah I mean at least the first time but still rewatching it you still feel that emotion. It's
well, and I
powerful.
think too the way that they cut away at the end and go right to the credits, they don't give you anything to go off of.
Yeah.
And then I think directly before this we see Jim and Pam gambling at the same table. And Pam does that look with her line where she looks away, and Jim says, "Oh yeah, right." So he calls her, and he gets it wrong.
I love that you brought that up because it's one of two moments in this episode where the two are like silently communicating, and like so they're kind of like she's doing that thing where she tilts her head and stuff like that, and in that moment, but in the beginning of the episode. When Dwight and Jim are talking about like telepathy, and Pam moves the coat rack for him with the umbrella.
Boy,
and
they really got lucky that Dwight asked them to move the coat rack.
Yeah, I know, right? I know. But she was quick to come up with that, and then like they just look at each other and like he knows. And anyways, and I love that whole bit too, where she just like. Holds up the umbrella like that. There's no sound in that entire bit once he starts doing
well, and it's
so
rules,
good.
It's like rules of three, right? Because we see them clicking, like see them really flirting during poker, and that's a really good point. I'd never considered that, Edwin, of like Jim calls her bluff in that moment and she wasn't bluffing, which is what happens later. But we get them doing the poker. We get them playing the prank on Jim at the beginning, and we get the whole part where they're watching the wedding band tapes.
Yep.
So we get these three different moments. The whole episode is spent just getting the chemistry between Jim and Pam to this level that's undeniable, and just like
bubbling.
Look at how perfect these two are.
Boiling.
And it's the whole season has been like that, and then this episode hits you 1, 2, 3 times, and then it delivers that ending, the final blow, and it's devastating. And then it's exciting, and then it's confusing, and then it's over, and it's Angie Hamilton's name. Her name is seared into my head because you're just like, and then suddenly it's Angie Hamilton. It's
the first credits
who
roll.
Is she?
Yeah.
What happened?
Did you do that? Yeah. I think too. It's interesting to follow that way that the gambling scene sort of precedes.
Yeah.
Jim putting himself out there and telling Pam how he feels. That he gets clapped off by Kevin. It's Jim Halper, ladies and gentlemen.
That's such a great moment.
And
I love that.
There's an element of, as we think about the way that season 2 ends and season 3 begins, Jim is gone. So in a way, it clears the way for Jim to leave. And there's a moment at the beginning of the episode where Jim says, "Why did I talk to Jan about transferring? It's obvious. I have no future here." So there is such a great like dynamic of gambling, of putting it all on the line. Of risking it all, you know. Jim out here looking like he's about to risk it all.
I mean, hey, and if we could just move on to another story arc in this episode, Michael Scott putting it all on the line, putting Jan and Carol up against each other, double date.
2 queens on casino night, yeah.
Queens on casino.
The sequence where he does the double booking between those 2 phone calls, very well done.
So good because he's like doing really well with Jan too.
He's doing really well with both. Like he's actually competently talking to women, which he's never able to do.
There's that part though where he's like, I am the Eva Perón to your Cesar Chavez. And I had to look that one up. Eva Perón was the first lady of Argentina in the 1940s and 50s. Cesar Chavez, an American labor activist in the 1950s through 70s. There is no connection. Which I could have guessed.
Sean, thank you for looking up some history stuff. That warms my heart. I like to figure out some history facts for the office. So
I'm trying to educate myself and everyone during these times, during these unprecedented times.
These uncertain times.
Yeah, I think this moment.
Gonna love this.
The interaction between Michael and Jan and Carol sets up Michael's love life for the rest of the show. I think, to your point, we see Michael being very competent in his interactions with women, and he's portraying himself to Carol as kind of a normal guy. He's enjoyed his condo, and he's hosting this charity event in our warehouse.
Carol, how's the realty business coming? Is it real good? Still me, Michael.
Yeah.
That bit too, fantastic.
Dr. Levinson, I presume.
Levinson, I presume.
Hey, Jan, how's it going? Yeah. But yes, it establishes that Michael can be normal and that he can be a person that somebody would want to be with. Carol is very charmed by him at the casino night, and Jan does take him up on his offer, and she arrives there without having booked a hotel. Mm-hmm. Dwight full court presses her on the hotel.
Dude,
rattling off.
Reminiscent of asking her about her clothing too.
Mm-hmm.
Dwight's so weird with that stuff.
There's an Ann Taylor outlet.
Yeah, I know you like their blouses.
Or there's an element of gambling where Kevin is talking about poker, and he lists off the different games. Or when Kelly is pressing Donna about where she got her earrings. Mm-hmm. Claire's earrings. There's a recurring joke in the office of like being very, very pressing with lists of options.
Yep.
And that's one. But, yeah,
that's a good one. It's the fact that Michael kind of stumbles his way into this, having 2 dates to this thing. He obviously fancies himself a bit of a ladies' man in that moment, and he's like, he's nervous, he's terrified by it. He's totally terrified, but he's like, kind of realizes, oh my God, I'm the kind of guy that has 2 dates. And at the end, his talking head is like having these 2 women. He's got his New York girl and his local flavor. I think
he loves it. He loves it.
He's so scared. He's so scared.
Oh, yeah.
He's so scared, but Dwight loves it too. That's the best part when like Dwight's like, I have to help Michael. He's got 2 dates tonight.
We deceive them so as not to hurt them. And in that way, we honor them.
Codename Remax is already here.
No sign of Lan Jevinson.
That's it.
His timing is so good. And then he comes in later, Jan's here.
Yeah, with the double smooch.
The double kid.
That's how we do it in the paper biz. Yeah.
Couple of things, like, okay, Dwight's wearing his grandfather's tuxedo that he was buried in. We get a great look from Jim and Pam when he reveals that.
Real quick, Dwight and Graves. Like, how often do you talk about your own grave, the grave of your family members, digging graves? He's all about graves, man.
Well, they're married in their graves.
He says
the weddings are a bleak affair.
Yeah, that's right.
The funerals are quite romantic.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off.
No. I wanted to talk about Michael's competency, because I think let's talk about the event of Casino Night itself. What's the budget for this thing? They got all these neon signs. They've hired a staff of dealers. They've got it catered. I mean, this is a huge thing, and I know it's for charity, right? But the way that Michael organizes it, of like, okay, the winner's going to get $500 to the charity, and they're going to get this mini fridge. I assume the whole Scranton Business Park chipped in on this, right? That's sort of what it seems like.
Yeah.
Seems like Vance Refrigeration, all those folks in there.
We see Billy Merchant gambling at the table, so they're all there.
Right.
But Michael takes leadership. Like, he takes it as his thing, and including his welcoming speech when he has the
glow sticks.
The glow sticks.
Yeah.
And he gives that speech like several rounds into the table. Like, people are like have played a few hands already, and then he gives
Yeah.
that speech. It's a really funny timing, and then he sits down, loses all of his money to Toby immediately at that in that same scene.
He says, "Look what you did."
We also get that moment. We get the "I hate so much about the things you choose to be" moment in this episode.
The ultimate.
The ultimate, and boy, isn't it great how much room they give that scene to breathe? It takes its time. It just lets Steve Carell stare at Toby with contempt. It's so good.
Toby's delivery of his line is so dry. Like, I mean,
Do you want me to keep going?
It's in our dangerous warehouse. It's gambling, which is illegal.
It's catered by Hooters.
School night.
It's a school night. Do you want me to keep going?
Do I need to go on?
Yeah, another wonderful arc that's really,
him.
really established there. I mean, it's happened before, but that scene is just so special.
And then go.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
When Toby wins and he takes Michael's money, he says, "I'm not much of a gambler, but it felt really good to take Michael's money. I think I'm going to chase this feeling."
So funny.
I don't think he does. Yeah.
No. It was supposedly it was a suggested story arc for season 3 that Toby might spiral into a gambling problem, but they never went there.
He gets a writing problem instead.
Right.
The closest he gets after that is when he teaches Pam how to punch Michael. I mean, that's kind of the same feeling I'm sure he's looking for.
Oh yeah, that's one of his coolest moments.
Yeah.
That and do you want us to all sit Indian style in Diversity Day?
Yeah.
Those are his most badass moments. Toby's most badass moments.
Fun is also in the word.
Yeah, that's right. I'm leaving.
To bring it back to your point, Edwin, though, because we see Jan showing up without a place to stay, and it's this weird thing where like someone wants to come hook up with Michael and then is rejected, which is crazy that Michael Scott would ever. He does it almost accidentally. He doesn't even really mean to. But like you said, it does set the next couple seasons of his romance up, of sort of casting him into this. He's sort of in this gravitational pull between all these women, and he can't choose one, and he's just afraid of all of them, and he eventually ends up with Jan, who's terrible.
I think absolutely. I think the other side of that is it sets up Jan as someone who doesn't always make the right decisions and second guesses herself. Where she's out there with Jim and she's smoking and she says, I drove 2.5 hours to get here and I'm totally underdressed. Why did I do that thing? Why did I do that thing with Michael?
Yeah. Why did I hook up?
Why did I hook up with
she
Michael?
asked Jim that, and Jim's like, yeah, why did you? Like,
why did you? I know, he's not very nice about it.
But it foreshadows the cocktails episode, the negotiation.
Cocktails, where she's also smoking a cigarette and going, I date Michael Scott publicly, and claps in on myself like a dying star.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
A couple tough moments for Jan.
Yeah. Tough look from a girl.
There is also that moment between Jan and Carol where they both know that they are after Michael Scott, and like Carol says something like, "Oh, well, I'm having a nice time." Like, and it's just like there's something about the way she says it that's like, oh, them's fighting words.
At the casino night.
I also think neither of them want to admit to themselves that they're doing that, and they don't want to admit to each other.
Yeah.
Like,
well, Carol doesn't know. Carol has been pretty well fooled by this point. She might have thought that Michael is a little odd when she sold him the condo, but since then she's only seen him be great with kids and
right at during his birthday party.
Yes,
that's right.
So at this point, she's like, I'm in, and he's got other women trying to get at him. So I should hurry. I should lock it down.
That 2-shot of the two of them at the bar having that conversation reminded me of one of my favorite sort of office memes, which is like, I'm not saying Michael Scott has a tight butt, and then it's Carol, Jan, Helene, Holly, and Ryan with bleached hair.
Yeah. The Donna's the only one. Ryan with bleached hair. Oh gosh, that's good. Donna and the chair model are the only brunettes. Maybe.
let's wrap up. I want to talk a little more about Jim and Pam, and then we can do some notes on this episode. How does that
Yeah,
sound?
for sure. Yeah.
We got, and mainly this, because this is something I want to talk about with you guys, because we got a voicemail from Luciano. We're not going to play it, but we'll discuss it here. But he asked us, like, how would the show be different if Jim and Pam if that season ends and they were together to start season 3? Like, how does that change the show? Do they do a merger? Does it like how does it change? Is the whole show a season shorter?
For me, it's just that's too fast. It wasn't earned. It's not like you have to see Pam arrive at that decision, and that's what season 3 is. So I think that you'd always be, if it opened with season 3, I'd feel far more uncertain about their relationship.
I think that, there are a lot of domino effects that happen with this.
Right.
Realistically, if that were to happen, that Pam says, I feel the same way, and reciprocates Jim's feelings, and they do spend season 3 or begin season 3 together, I think they would have done a lot of that negotiation and working out, and her splitting up with Roy, a lot of that that sort of pain and mess to navigate, especially with them all working in the same place. I bet that would have happened off screen, and they would have recapped it at the beginning of the season.
Yeah.
That we've talked about this term, en medio res, in the middle of things, and Office season openers often do that. We don't see Jim's last day in Scranton, for example. We just see him in the new branch, and I think that's what we would see if that were to happen. I think you'd lose the big reveal, or there would be, how would the other characters in the Office deal with Jim and Pam being together? Would they be open with their affection in the Office? Like, that would be an interesting question, because they were so open with their friendship in the Office, in that open space. I also wonder, just thinking long term about the show, how does Andy enter the picture?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. I guess. I mean, it really allows them to get out of the Office and develop Jim and Pam separately for a bit. I think that's really important too. It bolsters your faith in that relationship and your investment in it. If it was as easy as, like, all he had to do was say something, it'd feel a little cheap.
It gives you a little taste. I just need a taste of, like, what is there for them. Like,
give me that hope.
What's waiting for them. We get to just get a piece of, like, oh my God, it's beautiful. And then they get another season of the tension. Which is, like, the most marketable part about The Office, especially a show that's still in its first 3 seasons, on network TV. Like, you need to secure some viewership, and what better way than to give us a bone, but then keep it going for a while.
Make them smooch.
Give
the people what they want to see. Bring in the smooching. I think there are 2 things that keeping Jim and Pam that keeping their arcs separate kind of does is it lends extra weight to a couple of quotes from Michael. Number 1 on Blue's Cruise, where he says to Jim,
just gonna say that,
never ever give up. And he says, big deal, engaged ain't married. Right, and he gives Jim that little bit of hope, and then I think it's at the beginning of BFT. That's what I was trying to think.
Yeah.
And at the beginning of season 3, where Jim is looking at an empty chair, or maybe Pam is looking at an empty chair, Michael says something to the effect of, when 2 people are good for each other, what should keep them apart? And there's a level of realizing how far apart Jim and Pam really are. And the other thing that I think, to your point, Pam and Jim develop more separately in different places, and when they come back together, it's that much more fulfilling. But I think there's that scene where I want to say it's during the negotiation in season 3, where Roy comes in and attacks Jim and is subdued by Dwight, and then later he and Pam are having this sort of last conversation, and Roy says to Pam, "You're not even going to try to date him.
Right?
You called off our wedding for the guy." And she says, well, there are a lot of reasons, which I think is really important to Pam's development, that she's not just at the whim of Jim, basically, that she's her own person and her own character and should be allowed to develop.
No Jim whim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Snap it to a whim, Jim.
I also, you mentioned Booze Cruise, and I was going to say this feels like a sister episode to Booze Cruise, or it resolves Booze Cruise, because the moment you got to think the moment when Jim decides there's no future for him in Scranton is the moment that they commit to their wedding date, or Roy and Pam do on Booze Cruise. And we see Jim with a 1,000-yard stare. He breaks up with Katie. He has the talk with Michael. I mean, all that sort of comes to blossom here. He does take Michael's advice. He takes he doesn't give up one last time and tells her, and then he's gone, And so, yeah, it's the seeds were planted earlier in the season. And that's what makes this episode just an all-timer. It's really crazy. And I mean, the other thing Michael says too in Booze Cruise is that dancing's a primal art form used in ancient times to body and communicate.
Yes.
So it's all good stuff.
Just that one guy playing the bass line from Get Busy by Sean Paul. What am I saying? Sometimes you have to be the boss of dancing.
Yeah.
What other takeaways? What other hot takes? What other favorite moments do you have from Casino Night?
Here's a hot take. Jim and Pam's kiss is the second most sexually charged moment in the episode.
The first.
Dwight kisses Angela. She slaps him. In that moment when they're at the table and we see Angela walk away and Angela's grinning and Dwight has a look on his face. He's been slapped and he's kind of like,
yeah. It's bubbling.
It is such a hectic moment. It happens so fast. It's this whirlwind, and Dwight's in the middle of throwing at roulette or at craps.
And he's like, "Give me the dice.
Come on!" He's just full of vigor in that moment. And Angela's into it. Dwight's into it.
He's having a great night. He's helping Michael with his two women.
That's my hottest take from that. That's pretty good. Second most.
It's a good one.
Sexually charged moment.
This is a great episode for Kevin Malone.
I was gonna say yes, I agreed.
What really rewatching it, it's like, first of all, it's the most well-rounded you ever see Kevin. Mm-hmm. We learned that he's in a band. We learned that he went to some poker championship.
The World Series of Poker. What a bracelet.
He's not maybe he's not as dumb as we thought he was, but.
Why use many word when few word do trick?
Right. We also find out he's a drummer.
So a couple of things about that. I heard that that they picked Scrantonicity, or they wanted Kevin's band to be a Police cover band, because Kevin talks low and slow and Police sing high and fast. So that's why they wanted.
Very good.
There's also
I should have had him do a Bon Jovi cover band in that case.
Brian Baumgartner couldn't play an instrument, so that's why they made him a drummer, and they thought it was hilarious that he's a lead singing drummer.
Sure.
Which, there are some great lead singer drummers.
Hey,
Bill Collins.
Shout out to Levon Helm, my guy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think yes, to your point, I think this is the smartest we see Kevin portrayed. In this poker, in that one fleeting moment where he talks about winning a poker bracelet, and then
he's just wearing glasses low on his nose. That's what we're really talking about.
The Jim Halpert, ladies and gentlemen, moment feels a little more self-aware.
That's a very that's a Brian Baumgartner line, not a Kevin Malone line.
Yeah. I also think the joke that he has in the conference room as a part of a talking head is a very perfect encapsulation of a Kevin joke from early in the season, which is he says, "I'll probably donate it to something with animals or people." It's a very, very good Kevin joke.
It's a real double fudge Angelo moment.
It doesn't play him as it plays him as a stupid character, but not in the same over the top way that it does at the end of the show. It's just the way that he says it, less than
It makes him. It doesn't make him at all unlikable. It makes him much more likable.
Yeah, it's
though it's
It reminds me of when he thinks, "I got the foot bath for myself." It's that kind of a moment. Maybe I should have taken the
iPod. Oh shoot!
Yeah, it's Kevin being Kevin as opposed to the very cartoonish,
the most unthreatening member of the office.
Yes,
Kevin Malone.
Edwin.
I loved. I think this is a funny episode for Creed, where he just talks about how much he loves stealing. This is one of my favorite Bob Vance moments. I love little audio bits in the show.
Oh, I hope you're going to say what I think.
He says, the night's chip leader and the winner.
Yes.
That was beautiful.
Oh, this is beautiful.
Yeah. Just the way he says, the winner. I love it.
Yeah. I was like, for sure.
Added by Vance.
I love the way Phyllis lights up when Michael says that the winner's going to get a mini fridge early on in the episode.
Mhm.
Phyllis really lights up. Yeah. Oh, I got all the clovers.
Yeah.
Creed just being like, honestly, I just love stealing.
I love stealing. I think I brought up in trivia before, but that poker hand, Kevin plays it right.
3 queens,
but,
right?
he has 3 of a kind with queens, pocket queens. It's the right time, but yeah, Phyllis, the accidental flush, which happens sometimes.
All clovers.
All clovers.
How funny that Kevin and Michael have the same hand, 2 queens.
Hey.
Oh.
I have a couple little notes from this one. I don't think the mind control prank, it doesn't age that well. It's just kind of like, come on. Like Dwight, at this point, Dwight's a bit of a different character, but I get it because Dwight's so eager to believe that magic exists or like telepathy would exist but it's like, dude, come on. Jim has been pranking you forever. He just not control his mind. Also, Roy has to be talked into going into a casino night at his own warehouse. Like when he's trying to get Pam to not go, and he's like you're gonna, why? Because it's not an open bar. Like, come on, bro. Like
Hooters is catering.
This is Roy's thing. He doesn't want to participate. If you're gonna be my boyfriend,
yeah.
Got to do boyfriend things.
He didn't even want to hang out at Chili's.
Kelly's quote about Kobe reminded me. This is like height of the Kobe scandal. That was kind of like oh wow, man, what a crazy time. Yeah. Jim has a big quote in this episode that goes totally under the radar when they're watching the wedding tapes, and he's talking about how they're all like, these guys didn't give up on their dreams. You know, you have to watch all of these, and then it'll probably all be terrible, but that will make me feel better about not having dreams. And then she's like, there's a Kiss cover band, and they just kind of move on. But it's this line Jim says that's really like kind of at the heart of his character for a long time.
He has no dreams.
That he has no dreams, and he can't stand that about himself.
But he does.
Eventually.
He does have dreams. He wants to be with Pam, but he can't acknowledge it.
He wants to start a company called Athlete.
No, that's a great line, Alex. I noticed that too. I thought it's almost a throwaway line, but it really contains a lot of meaning, and it says a lot about Jim in the early seasons. I think the other note or forgotten joke that I had was when Michael does his Lady Luck presentation. Well, I love that he throws the little snappers on the ground and then has to tell Dwight. and then at the end, he sits down, he goes, shuffle up. He goes, let's get it started. The Black-Eyed Crows. Which is just a joke that I'd forgotten about. The Black-Eyed Peas. Like,
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Black-Eyed Crows. Sorry, I have one last sticky note here.
Go ahead.
That it just bugs me. This has always bugged me about this episode. When he loses to Toby, they flip their cards. They never play that hand out. There's no cards put down. The dealer gives all the chips to Toby, and not a single card is put on the table. So unless Michael went all in, Toby went all in, and Michael folded, which is ridiculous. It's like, you got to see the flop there. Anyway, it's just basic stuff that bugs me. Anyway, whatever. Then Michael busts at craps right after that. How much money do you think Michael lost in this episode?
And who knows?
All the money in his shoe, no doubt.
Yeah. And then my last other favorite line from this episode is the Jan and Jim conversation. Yeah, why did you hook up with Michael? It was very late, Jim. Very, very late. That's the only reason she gives.
He nailed the sale, man. He nailed the sale with Tim Meadows. It was hot. Edwin, what about you? Any final thoughts on Casino Night before we move on to our conference room and trivia?
No, I think this is, as we mentioned at the beginning, this is one of the more important episodes of the entire show. I think we really nailed down, or were able to talk a lot more about how that Jim and Pam gambling scene right before the dramatic reveal from Jim really sets it up. And I think looking back on this episode, that was my big takeaway is the metaphor of gambling, this idea of going all in, and the way that it sets up Jim and Pam's sort of relationship for the rest of the show. This is a highlight, signature, iconic moment in the entire run of The Office.
Jim is a pair of queens in the hand, and Roy is a flush in the bush.
Well said, Alex. And that wraps up our episode on Casino Night. Moving on to a little conference room. 5 minutes.
Conference room, 5 minutes. Okay, everybody listen up. If you are not in that conference room in 2 minutes, I am going to kill you.
Okay.
Right.
Sorry. So for conference room this week, this question comes from Leah on Instagram, and she says, let's see. Hello, Michael Scott Podcast Company. First of all, love the podcast. Always makes me laugh and smile. Thank you very much. And she says, I have an unpopular opinion, and I wanted to hear how you guys feel about this. I think that Andy should have never broken up with Jessica to be with Aaron. So what do you guys think? Jessica.
Wait, does she back it up? Is that it?
No, that's all it is. Just
okay.
God, it's hard to even think about after talking about Jim and Pam so much.
Yeah, I guess I agree because things did not work out with Aaron. He did a horrible job with that relationship. Kind of seems like he could have stayed with Jessica and impressed his parents and all these other things, and maybe he would not have turned out to be such a prick in the later episodes.
Yeah, stay with Jessica.
That.
Stay with Jessica. Don't waste Aaron's time. She's an angel. Don't even go near her.
Jessica falls into a category of characters who were made to not really root for on The Office, even though they don't really do anything wrong.
She hasn't done anything wrong.
Karen Filippelli, I feel like there are a couple others.
Roy, a little bit.
Yeah.
Almost.
Well, Roy they portray as being not perfect for Pam, or
he tried to attack.
Yeah, that's true.
Jim.
That's true.
And he destroyed that bar with Kenny
with a sock full of nickels.
Yeah. He had that DUI.
Yeah.
But anyway, thinking about this question, I thought
this is for the YouTube. Let's all do our impression of Roy's mugshot. That's a great thumbnail right there.
I think it's interesting that season 6 and season 7, Andy and Aaron, is such a fun dynamic because they're both so oblivious and they play it all so wrong, trying to get together. And they're so sweet and well-meaning, but completely naive, and they have no idea what they're doing. And it's nice to see them finally get together. In season 7, Andy, of course, is not dating Aaron. Aaron is dating Gabe, and you root for them to come back together. However, and in season 8, we do see Andy and Aaron, and eventually Andy does break up with Jessica and goes down to Tallahassee to get Aaron. But I think the versions of Andy and Aaron that follow that clearly aren't meant to be together and don't work out, and their characters progress in a way that makes them very incongruent with the characters from season 6 and season 7, if that makes sense. In terms of season 6, if we got season 6 and season 7, Aaron and Andy, they should for sure be together. Season 8 and season 9, Andy clearly should not be together.
Post Outward Bound Andy is the terrible person. Rafe and Feather really got to him.
Leah, I still want to hear your argument for this, so you should respond so that we can talk about it. I always love an unpopular opinion.
I think contrarian.
But yeah, thank you for sending that in.
I mean, I think Jessica stands out as a very nice, normal person. It would make sense for Andy. And Andy seems to be a good version of himself when he's with her. But anyway, let's move on to the next question. So this question comes from Melanie via Instagram, and she mentions in season 8, the episode is Mrs. California. She says, in the episode where Mrs. California, Susan, comes to get a job and Andy is panicking about not hiring her, after the cat is out of the bag that is due to Robert not wanting her there, Andy is asked by Robert to leave the conference room. The last scene of the episode is Andy walking out to his car, and Susan stops him and apologizes for being put in that situation, to which Andy tells her that they all really wanted her to work there, especially. And at the end, she says it's a date.
Right.
So anyone else think this was kind of a wasted opportunity to not do some kind of episode where Andy gets together with Susan to get back at Robert California?
That would be
for giving
hysterical.
Nellie his job.
Totally. That's what a great thing to bring up, because I love that moment where I love that, like, oh, what? Like, moment from Andy that he didn't see that coming. It could be so funny that she's really aggressive about the affair, and like he can't, like, just like, you know, he can't like tell her no, because then that'll make her mad, and like, and then him having to try and like do this balancing act. That would have been hilarious. I would have loved to see it.
It would have been great, and I almost thought they would. I mean, Maura Tierney, I was looking up that actress.
Oh, yeah.
Plays, like, she's a really good actress. She's been in a ton of stuff. Like, she's.
We could have seen more of her.
Oh, they're bringing her in. She's probably going to be around for a while. But I agree, that would have been a rich comedy ground. Just watching Robert California realize his wife's cheating on him with Andy, of all people, would be such a special moment, just to see how Robert California would deal with that. Probably not well, but I would have liked to have seen it.
Yeah, I think it's funny rewatching that episode, the extent to which it's just a little period on an episode that is entirely characterized by not knowing what the other person is really thinking.
Mm-hmm.
The whole episode is back and forth about whether or not Andy should be honest or not, or keep up the lie or keep up the charade. Intercut with Jim trying to escape, which is pretty funny.
What if they took it so far that it was just like Robert was accepting of their affair? Like, it could get so weird.
Yeah,
it makes me think of when
vastly more interesting.
Now we're cooking. It makes me think of when
sex, and all sex is competition.
I'm not going to do it.
It makes me think of when Robert says to Andy, Andrew, what do we have to do to get rid of you? He's wearing the visitor's badge and making Cherry's Jubilee.
Oh my God.
Turf war, yeah.
You clearly want the basil plant.
I could have sworn you said the marmalade. Well, thank you.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
No, you go ahead, bud.
Oh, I've got one last thing, but yes, I guess first, thank you, Melanie, for sending in that question. I think it's
thank you, Melanie.
It's fun to think of how that could be explored, and it's always fun to think about what would Robert do? You know, you don't want to poke the bear, or in this case, the Lizard King.
No, you don't.
But one last thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
No, I was just saying we have a lot of questions. We've got a couple mailbags worth of episodes of questions. So
doing one soon.
Yeah, send them in. We'll get to them. We'll get to them eventually. And we have so many that we try and get to them as they're relevant to whatever episode we're doing. So stick around.
Yes, absolutely. One little last thing that I want to mention, because talking about season 8 and talking about Casino Night, I wanted to mention something that Justin on Facebook sent to us, which is a little Easter egg that in season 2. Episode 22, Casino Night, Michael is talking about how the Lincoln assassination just became funny. I need to see this guy like I need a hole in the head.
Yeah.
And in the season 8 episode, Gettysburg, where Gabe plays Lincoln, says about Mary Todd Lincoln, I need her like I need a hole in the head. So,
they stole the joke.
Such a funny
they
little
stole the joke from themselves.
Funny little Easter egg there, but yeah.
It's good. It's a good one. It's time for some trivia.
Okay, so this trivia comes from Tessa on Instagram, and I shuffled the questions a little bit, so we'll go from the easiest to more difficult as we progress. So some of these will start pretty easy, and then they'll get pretty difficult. So the first one,
great.
What is Todd Packer's license plate?
Well hung.
Yeah, big William Hung fan? Yes.
Mm-hmm. Who is that?
Second question is, what is Ryan's middle name?
Oh, I know that. I've asked this on trivia before.
Fans of the show will remember that I did middle name trivia during our Ryan's Cool Retreat series.
Wow.
It's like not a traditionally male name, right? It's like I feel like it's a different.
It's the name of a popular liqueur.
Ryan Jägermeister.
Perhaps an Irish liqueur.
Ryan Bailey.
Yeah. Correct, sir. Ryan Bailey.
Nice.
This has been a trivia question a couple times. What is Benjamin Franklin's real name?
Gordon.
Andy Daly? Oh.
Both correct. Somehow both right. Yeah.
Gordon is the real answer.
Character's
Andy
name,
Daly
but
is the actor.
Yeah. No one, when I go
Both
back to
syphilitic,
watch,
too.
when I go back to watch old movies and TV show and comedy from the past 20 years, no one appears more, and I'm like, oh, it's Andy Daly.
Yeah,
Oh my
Daly.
gosh.
In bit
He's
parts as doctors
always
or
popping
hosts
up.
or
You can't repress his just jubilance and energy. It's
Did
just
you ever
too good.
watch his show where like
Review.
Review?
Yes, the
Yeah,
Review.
so good.
I drank
That's a
up
great-
Review. It's so
It's
good.
great.
It
yeah.
The
is-
original one is good too.
Hey, for this Corona quarantine, it's not very long. I think it was only ever 2 seasons. Give it a watch if you enjoy Andy Daly.
I would also
Highly
highly
recommend.
recommend the episode of the Conan O'Brien podcast where he has Andy Daly on, and Andy
Oh,
Daly
yeah.
does some
Yeah.
characters. It's very, very good.
Wow, he's very topical for the
Mm-hmm.
Corona quarantine. All right, moving on.
Next question, Isabel. What is Isabel's job?
She's a dental hygienist.
Correct.
And she makes love like one.
Do you remember bonus trivia? Do you remember where? She's a dental hygienist from blank.
Carbondale.
Correct. Nicely done, sir. Okay.
They did
Uh,
not have yams at the gas station in Carbondale.
Really? Because they always have yams. What is Andy's guitar named?
Oh,
Blank and I would like to play you one last song.
it's not Mabel or like.
No. That's a
It's
good
like-
guess.
I feel like it's an
I don't
old
know.
name.
It is-
I don't know.
Yeah.
Louisa or like
You're in the zone, I think.
it's not Luann.
No, you've got the
that's
right.
BB, that's BB
you got
King's guitar.
The right first
Lucille
letter.
is BB King's guitar.
Lucille, yeah.
It is Lucille?
No.
No, Lucille is
Oh.
BB King. Yeah.
Yeah.
Lucille
Oh.
too.
A piano can stand on
Ah.
those legs.
Can I get the first letter?
L.
It
I
is
told
L.
you.
Oh, you did. Oh,
I was trying to tell you.
Llewellyn.
I give up.
What is it?
Lorelei.
I knew that.
Okay, this is where it gets kind of tough here. Let's see. When Karen moves to Scranton, what room number and hotel does she stay in?
323.
No clue.
I don't know.
The Days Inn, room 228.
Oh, the Days In though. I could.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where she talks about moving in next to Jim.
Yep.
So it's
Mhm,
in a quote.
mhm.
So
Yes, definitely.
This one is tough. Let's see. So the question. Okay, so the question is, what does Michael prefer, the Summer or Winter Olympics? But it's really, what Olympics do Michael and D'Angelo prefer together?
I think they say summer.
Yeah, they both say summer. That's
Yeah.
yeah.
Because
They-
everyone
they-
says summer. Yeah.
They say it at the same time,
Mhm.
and it's one of the moments in their evolving friendship. I guess that wasn't.
Did that just
Uh,
happen?
Yeah. Okay. When Dwight shot a gun in the office, what did Andy's tie look like? This is also in a quote.
Wow.
So.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's right. I don't know.
Dwight is trying to set up. So a gun was fired, and Stanley says, "We all saw you do it." He says, "Really, Stanley? What gun was I? Or what hand was I holding the gun in? What did Andy's tie look like?" And Aaron pipes up and says, "Navy blue, little red anchors."
Yeah, that's right.
It's a Beaumont.
A Beaumont Adams.
Beaumont Adams. It's a
That's a
gun.
girl's gun.
Yeah. Why would you put a banana in your holster? Well, if you weren't hungry now, but you got hungry later. And then the last one. So when
Banana
So the-
Holsters. Good trivia team name.
or banana
I like it.
slings.
Or banana
That's the name of the So this episode is when Pam goes to interview at the real estate company in Philly,
Right.
played by Bob Odenkirk. What
Yep.
poster does the real estate manager have hanging above his desk?
Oh, is it one of those motivation ones?
It's a movie poster.
Oh, it's a movie poster. Oh,
And Jim and Pam are talking about the interview over dinner.
I don't know. Die
Guess what
Hard.
poster he had?
The Naked Gun. I don't
Jim
know.
guesses Austin Powers, I think. But
Oh.
Airplane?
No, the answer is The Odd Life of Timothy Green.
Oh, I would not have gotten that.
I don't even think I know what that is.
It's a Disney movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much
Yes.
for sending in that trivia.
Yeah, that's awesome.
We love it when
We love
listeners
getting
send
it,
it in trivia. You can send in trivia to us anytime or questions. Like Alex was saying, we got a mailbag coming up soon. Give us a call. We have a phone number, 503-694-9314. We have an email address, mspodcastcompany@gmail.com. We're on Facebook and Instagram, Michael Scott Podcast Company. We're on Twitter @Michael Scott Pod, and we have a website, michaelscottpod.com. Special thanks to Ryan Lloyd, who helps us with our social media and designs all of our artwork. This episode was recorded in Portland, Oregon, from our respective homes.
Mm-hmm.
And thank you all so much for listening.
Yeah, thank you as always for listening. We love and appreciate everyone who listens, interacts, rocks with us. Just take care of yourself, be healthy, stay safe. Have a great day.
Keep watching The Office, y'all.
Yeah.
Pippity poppy, give me the sock.
Yes,
sir.
Level who? Michael's gone. Threat level what? Apartheid. Gotta fight it. Free Mandela. Peace, I'm out.